Have you guys seen a lot of change in analytics and optimization industry over the last, 3-5 years? And, do you see a changing trend? Do you have some view into what's coming next? What's going to be big if we were back here 3 and 5 years from now?
So my answer is going to be different probably from these guys because they're going to talk about smart things like AI and
Fair.
yeah. So mine's much more research based because I'm the researcher or a researcher among the group. So I think the trend towards sort of lean learning, quick feedback, iterative validation is really going to drive a change in experimentation. And Anthony, you just said something that hits on that is like even the developers need to be involved in this conversation. So at Hilton, we have sort of shifted into a product mindset and human-centered design, lean thinking, agile software delivery. And we're lucky. We have 5,000 places in which we can go stand and capture our guests. We can go stand in the lobby of a hotel and intercept guests and talk to them. We bring our developers with us. We bring the designers with us. We bring the UX architects with us. And we bring, obviously the product leads with us. And the dev team usually are the guys and gals that are most interested and hungry to actually see the product in use and watch customers struggle and find the pain points and, all of that. And I think that is driving, we've only been doing this for about a year, but I think it's already driving a shift in the A/B tests that we're running and what our pipelines are going to look like in the next few years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think these guys all understand the tool stack and where we're going with that. I think you'd expect a lot of advancements in the tool stack. I think when I look back at the last couple of years at what we were experimenting with, simple UX design, should the button be here, should it be there, should the color be this, should the color design experiments, to where we are today, a little bit more experiential type design experiments, right? But it's still, what I look the most forward to, and I think John Lovett hit on this in some of the sessions, is sort of the outcome, getting the outcome right that we're trying to optimize to. It's going to get more complex. It's going to be more holistic I give the example of you can test a transaction and you can try to optimize to people getting through that funnel and buying something or ending the process. But have you asked how does that person feel about your brand at the end of that process? Does it align with your brand values? Do they feel the same way about you? Do they trust you? Do they feel like you handled it correctly? I think optimization will get more experiential like that in the future, and I think we'll optimize to more outcomes than just the simple conversion metrics that we might be doing today.
Yeah, I don't know if I can add too much to what Paula and Rusty just said. Could you just repeat the question?
What changes have you seen over the last 3 to 5 years, and what changes do you expect to see going forward?
Yeah, so for us, we kind of came to the market very early. I would say, in a way, too early. We came to market in 2010 with an approach which was API-driven, and really, we didn't talk about the AI component, but uses reinforcement learning as the kind of the core guiding architecture for our optimization platform. And other than Pfizer, who was our launch client, it was pretty much, there was zero interest in it. There was zero interest in APIs. The market wanted just basically a web editor and randomization, and like A/B testing was actually a difficult concept for folks. And even some of the vendors were kind of promoting p-hacking without really understanding the tech behind it.
That's on their bingo.
I would
Anybody
say,
get bingo?
All right, I'm crushing it. I would say I think there is it's a mix. There's increased sophistication, and there's a greater comfort of leaving. I want to say exactly the Truman Show of the past analytics vendor space, which really defined, I think, to a large degree, the grammar with which many folks in the industry were thinking about analytics problems. And I think one of the nice things about people using R and getting into SQL is not those technologies per se. It's important not to fetishize a particular technology, because I think that was the problem before. It's just that those are sort of gateways to other industries, and the fact that now folks in our space can start finding a lot of work that had been done outside and applying a lot of those concepts and abstractions to the work that we're doing here. So I don't know if it's necessarily about new solutions, like a lot of the machine learning and the AI and whatnot. That's a lot of that is nonsense, and a lot of it is fairly old technology within this this century. And I just think it's more about branching out from the current vendor stack and going out and just learning general abstractions and learning problems that have been solved elsewhere and applying into our industry.
So do you think 5 years from now, do you think the focus of experimentation is going to be primarily, AI-driven machine learning, or is there still a place for traditional split testing?
There are different things, and so experimentation is really about, at least the way I see it, it's really about exposing something to a severe test, and we're just trying. It's almost like, should this person graduate, and you give them a final exam, and you're just trying to assess whether or not you have with some certain probability that this individual knows something about the class. And so you would, even if our software does machine learning and it does the predictive targeting, and I'm in no way saying that that's some panacea, and it doesn't make sense in many use cases. I would say actually in most use cases. But even if you are using that solution, you don't want to trust us and saying our results, we believe that our results will have this return for you. What you want to do always is then test the output or the efficacy of the machine learning or the AI or whatever relative to some sort of baseline in market versus some random policy or some other editorial informed policy or some sort of baseline policy. So the notion of experimentation as being some sort of lower on some sort of hierarchy, I think is not appropriate way to think about it. Experimentation and testing is one thing, and then this notion of sort of optimization and learning conditional probabilities via machine learning or predictive targeting is sort of adjacent to it, and you would still want to sort of test that, at a higher level. So, this ranking of technology based upon sophistication or complexity is a fool's errand.
I totally agree with that, and I think they're very complementary. They are in no way in conflict. I did want to call out one thing Matt said that I really do agree with, I think is even more important, which is this idea, and I think one of the big changes will be that digital analytics has been done inside a terminological box that was created by a couple tools. I lived through that, right? I mean, I saw those tools grow up. I saw the trade-offs they were making and the kinds, why they called things visits, why they called things visitors, why they called things exits. That has gotten all of us to think in a really narrow framework about digital. Well, I do agree we'll probably fetishize new tools and with equally silly results. One nice thing about switching to R or ML Studios is that they don't come with a terminology. So it forces the analyst to break out of that box. And I think what I do expect is that in 5 years' time, I think analysts will talk about digital analytics very differently, because they won't be constrained by that little narrow box of page views that we all kind of grew up with. And I think that's been a really harmful box, actually, for thinking about the customer experience on digital. So to me, that's probably the biggest change is the tools. Because the tools are changing, the terminology is breaking down. When you think about R, you don't think about the terms of art that Google Analytics and Adobe have given us, and I think that's a really good thing.